let's get into our first article, man. I'm actually pretty excited that you're covering this.
Oh man.
And I know that I've mentioned it several times, the Dolphin emulator, and actually implementing that onto the Xbox Series S, and
Yeah.
how that isn't possible anymore on
Yeah, it's
the retail
unfortunate.
version. Yeah, but
Unfortunate,
you can
right?
do it on the dev kit. So if you want to take it
Yeah,
away, man.
it's a little crazy. Game developer we got this article from, and they are actually talking about the Dolphin emulator has been removed from Steam after Nintendo DMCA. Nintendo's newest DMCA prevents the popular emulator from growing even further. Dolphin, the extremely popular video game emulator, was set to have a PC version on Steam, but it's since been delisted from the platform. On May 27th, Dolphin's developers said that the port was indefinitely postponed as a result of discussions between Valve and Nintendo. We were notified by Valve that Nintendo had issued a cease and desist citing the DMCA against Dolphin's Steam page, they wrote, and have removed Dolphin from Steam until the matter is settled. Dolphin has been available for years as an open source project and is listed on Steam back in March of this year with an official store page and presumably priced at little to nothing. Its profile would have been greatly boosted as a result. Emulator interest has reportedly grown thanks to Valve's Steam Deck handheld. Nintendo's letter to Valve claims Dolphin uses, quote, cryptographic keys without Nintendo's authorization in decrypting the ROMs at or immediately before runtime. Doing so for individual games possibly violates Nintendo's intellectual property rights, which is what the publisher is using as its basis to stop Dolphin. An intellectual property lawyer speaking to PC Gamer explained that Nintendo's DMCA means it, quote, considers Dolphin to violate the DMCA and should it be released on Steam, Nintendo will likely take further action. Meaning that Valve could likely end up on the hook for any legal troubles, similar to what recently happened to Sony in Austria, which I don't really know much about, to be honest. But Dolphin's developers said that we're currently investigating our options and have a more in-depth response in the near future. We appreciate your patience in the meantime. Dolphin, getting the can on Steam. You know, should I be surprised though? I mean, this is the thing.
It's Nintendo at this point.
I mean, one, it's Nintendo, but two, we know the legal gray area that is emulators. All right, Mike. Not going to go into details about how it's done, but you know, there's certainly some gray area there to say the least.
It's one of those unspoken, but everybody knows it kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
With emulators, like the concept, like the legality of it is, it's supposed to be something that you could use if you have the actual physical copy of the game. So you would download the physical copy of the game and then use it for yourself, like on the go or on any other thing. So that's like the loophole. But what really happens is people just go to like websites, archive.org or whatever the heck it's called, and just download all the games as if it's their own, and then they play it.
Pretty much.
So it's like, it's definitely pirated. You can't say it's not.
I mean, yeah, and this is the thing too. Have you ever actually looked into how to extract an ISO from a game disc on like whether it's Nintendo or Xbox or anything like that? It's
I have it, and it's not that hard if you're about to say it is.
Well, because so Nintendo, I'm not necessarily gonna say
Nintendo's is harder, especially their cartridges.
Yeah, well, cartridges, yeah, but like even their disc-based games, I'm not necessarily gonna say it's hard. However, I will say there's certainly hoops you have to jump through and software you have to install in order to properly rip that. So,
yes,
it's certainly it's certainly more time consuming to do that. Not saying it's impossible, of course, but yeah, if you were to do it, legally, quote unquote, then yeah, that's it definitely is definitely takes a little longer. But yeah, I mean, and then but that's the only legal way to do it really is if you have the physical disc, you can get the ISO off it and do it that way. Yeah, there's a challenge with that though. So I don't know. It's but yeah, there's like most people they don't want to too lazy, especially if you're like you're downloading the simulators, you just kind of want the games quick. So that's how most people probably do it. They just go on a site and download it, and yeah, that's kind of
it and call it a day. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like through the Dolphin emulator on Steam, it almost like just from reading that description, it sounds like there's sort of a different approach to it, to kind of try and maybe like dodge that, like at least like the legal gray area part. But yeah, it's still Still not very liked by Nintendo, to say the least.
No, definitely not. I mean, Nintendo has been very serious about their proprietary like products, I guess, intellectual property rights. I think I need to say it's like they've always been that way. So it's not out of character of them. I feel like people kind of should expect it by now. They've always
Yeah,
been this way. It's like they had a big issue with people copying, or they heard about like PS1, PS2 games getting ripped in the Xbox games. So it's like when the GameCube came out, they made the discs smaller so it'd be difficult to steal. And then they started switching over to like cartridges again. And it's just like whatever they can possibly do to prevent this kind of thing from happening. But
right.
at the same time, man, it's like emulators, you're not really gonna be playing Nintendo Switch game on an emulator, are you? Like,
I
it's
mean,
gonna be a terrible, terrible like experience.
yeah, I mean,
It's
yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to do or almost possible right now. But yeah, by the time it gets to that, where people start emulating Switch games, I mean, a lot of the
yeah,
functionality obviously wouldn't work on most, on most,
no.
I guess that's what I'm looking for, controllers or like mouse and keys. So, um, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. And even on the Wii, it's kind of like, you download like a Wii game, it's like, okay, I mean, you need like a sensor bar, right? And like sometimes there's like I think there's even sensor bars that are USB, so you could just like buy one that plugs in directly. Um, so you can like
That's
make
if
it
you
work.
want to use the you can I think it works on Bluetooth now, so you can still make it work, but nowadays you'll in the emulation for Dolphin that's for the PC, not I don't know how Steam works, but you can download it directly from their site.
Yeah,
Um, and the way it works is you just reprogram the controls to be on a normal controller. Like you can play any
yeah,
of the
that's a good
Switch
point.
games
Yeah,
now, or like any not the Switch game, like GameCube games or Wii games on an Xbox controller if you want to, or PlayStation controller as long as it's Bluetooth connected to your computer. You
yeah,
just
it's
have to
true.
repath everything, and it takes a while.
Yeah,
So
especially yeah. I'm kidding. Yeah, I had to do some remapping when I was doing emulation for like older games. But it's not even just like remapping the controls themselves necessarily, but like it's depending on the emulator you're using. There's also you can map a ton of like functionality for like say like save stating or like rewinding or anything like that. So there's like a whole subset of controls you have to map, and depending on the controller you're using will change that as well. So yeah, it's
oh yeah.
it could be a lot to set up, especially for a first time user. But yeah, once you get it all set up, it's pretty seamless, assuming you're using the a decent emulator.
Yeah, and in this article, it does continue on about Nintendo's past experience with taking action against these like pirated games and stuff. And the one that I briefly mentioned before we got into the article was the emulators that were going on with the Xbox Series X and S consoles. So it's like the same exact thing happened. Nintendo approached Microsoft and was like, "Hey, you need to take this off for the same reason that they said it for Steam."
Yeah,
And Microsoft did it, except if you have the dev subscription, you can still play it. I
yeah,
don't know how that works. And I don't think maybe it's because it's a dev kit at that point that they can't really control it
yeah. I
because you're
think
paying for the rights of the
that's
Xbox in a
that's what I'm
way.
saying. Like I think you're paying for like the I don't know. I'm trying to think of the word, but like you're paying for the hardware itself essentially, not necessarily like the software it's running on
Yeah.
it. So there's like that. I guess there's enough degree of separation where like Microsoft doesn't have liability anymore, and so it's like
Yeah.
you can just kind of do whatever you want. Um, yeah. So I mean, I think that's kind of where that makes sense. But it makes me think too of like are we gonna get to a point where like say like GameCube games, like like how like in music, I forget how it works, but it's like whenever like the artist like passes away and like after a certain amount of time it'll become public domain. I wonder if video games will fall under a line where like one day GameCube games will just be public domain, and so you can just download everything without any legal repercussions.
That I mean that's a good question. So I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
I would think so because it is art, but it's like they're still gonna own the rights and they could probably just renew it, right?
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I don't
See,
know.
like my personal opinion. Obviously, like this is kind of just outside of everything, but like my personal thing is like I think, especially like GameCube and like N64 and a lot of those older games, like I feel like it should get to a point where like we just want people to enjoy these games and understand the history and like just play them without like having to worry
Yeah.
about legal ramification. Because I think it gets to a point of just like these games, they've made, they made all the money from printing them, selling them, and all that, and it's all just resell at this point anyway. So it's like, why don't we just like give anyone the ability to, just download it and play it and just kind of see what the older games are all about. Because I think we're at a point where it's like, I mean, yeah, like there's still like, the property, the intellectual property itself and all that, of course, is still in question, but like a lot of the games themselves, I mean, they're not, Nintendo's not making money off that anymore, so it's like,
No, they're not.
at least the games themselves, right? So it's like, I don't know, it'd be nice if it got to a point where we could just, download and play the old one.
And the other thing is too, it's like how many of those original developers and are actually going to make money off of the game that the game's like 30 years old.
I mean, at this point, none, right?
Yeah, it's like, do they still exist? Are those people still alive? Like,
I mean,
you know what I mean? Are they
that's
still
a-
employed?
That's a real question.
That's actual real question. It's not like anything malicious
Yes,
or
that's a valid
negative
question.
thinking. It's like 30 years is a long time, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
hey, yeah. One quick thing I want to mention before we should move on is the Gary Bowser pirate that got completely destroyed by Nintendo. Remember we
Yeah.
covered that?
Oh yeah.
He's going to spend the rest of his life paying Nintendo Switch or Nintendo.
Yeah.
I keep saying Switch because like there's an ad on my screen. So sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. But basically, he has to earn like $40 million according to this. He's 53 years old, so it's like he's never going to be able to pay this off. Like,
Yeah, probably not.
he got hooked, and all he made was 350 grand. I hope it's worth it, dude. If that like
Oh,
Nintendo
man,
would force you like cease and desist or whatever.
Yeah.
Stop your productions. But man, if like you're making money off of it, they'll come for everything.
Yeah, they really will. It's kind of crazy. Nintendo don't mess around when it comes to copyright, so
No
say
shot.
the least.